Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite provides you with all the resources you need to become a successful author. You can learn more about Authors Unite and join the free community at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today, I have Primoz Bozic with us. He is an online business coach for thought performers. So welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome, man. I'm happy to have you on as well. And we will dive in. The first question I have for you, man, is what is the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Yes, I think the story actually goes to before, I was able to build this big online business after, coming out of Slovenia and earning $7 per hour as a programmer. And it was far, far before that when I was still in high school. So in high school, I always used to, be a straight A student, like for primary school. Then when I got in high school, things got a little bit messed up because I actually had to start studying. Just being smart wasn't good enough anymore. And it was this weird period of my life when, I had this girlfriend and I broke up with her and I got really depressed. And then I remember I had this dream. I had this dream of studying abroad because I thought maybe if I go study in London, I can, have a taste of that college life that you see in the movies. And maybe it's like a way to, start over and to have this clean slate. So I would apply for all of these top universities, and I think I would get letters, like offer letters for 2 or 3 of them from like really big colleges. And I think it was like UCLA, I think that one. And then there was like King's College and then Imperial College London or something like that. Now, when I got those offers, and I read them, first of all, I was super excited because I spent months really preparing for this and writing cover letters and CVs and, getting recommendation letters. But then when I saw those, things come in, like those offer letters, like my heart sank because I saw in that moment that if I wanted to even qualify for any of those colleges, I would basically have to pass with straight A's. And unfortunately, at that point in my life, I got really, really scared and I got really paralyzed because I was like, well, how do I get an A in Slovenian language? Like, that's not something that I'm good at. That's not something that I'm interested in. I would have to get really good at things like history that I really didn't want to study. And unfortunately, at that point in my life, I just gave up. I said no to myself and I said no, I can't do that. And it was painful because what happened after that was, even though I had this big dream, I actually ended up failing and repeating the last year of high school, which was super painful because, again, I thought I was a, smart kid. And then to go from that to start skipping school and avoiding exams because of this big goal that just paralyzed me. That was one of the biggest lessons of my life. And, luckily, like I said, I never repeated something stupid like that again. But what that really taught me, and something that stuck with me even when I built a profitable online business was to, whenever you have a big opportunity, to always go all out on it. Always give it your all, no matter how hard it seems. But what you don't want to do is do nothing or do way too little because you're always going to regret it. But if you do give it your all, and it just doesn't work out, at least you'll sleep at night, knowing that you gave it your all. So that's probably the biggest story, and it has taught me, how to build an online business, because now whenever I do have a big goal, I actually go all out on it rather than, being frozen and paralyzed.
And what is the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
Yeah, I think, especially in the online business space, it's always worth putting in 10 times more effort than everybody else because it's going to give you 100 times the results. So, for example, when a lot of people, when they write a blog post online about the specific topic, they might write a 500-word blog post or a 1,000-word blog post. And likely nowadays, some people are going to read it on social media and on your blog, and then it's just going to get lost in the weeds. Instead of doing that, what you could do is write a 10,000-word blog post or even an ultimate guide on a topic like that really becomes the best piece of content on the internet on a specific topic. And yes, it's going to take more time. It might take 10 times more time, but what's going to happen is your piece of content is really going to stand out and a lot more people are going to see it, visit it, over time, and you're going to get a lot more paying clients for that. It's the same thing with, for example, creating an online course, because a lot of people create online courses nowadays. Rather than just creating an online course, putting something together and selling it for like $20 or $50, instead think about how can you really create the best online course in the industry. Like, how can you really make sure that your audience is really going to succeed with these subjects? How can you go above and beyond what everybody else is doing? And then, maybe you can sell it as a $500 course or a $1,000 course. And that's the exact same approach I used to build a six-figure online business, was by creating, courses and content that's the best on the internet rather than settling for mediocrity. Yeah. And then the flip side of doing that is, as you do that, make sure you say no to everything else so you can create space for doing these amazing things. Because I see a lot of people trying to do everything. So don't do everything. Focus on one thing, do it really well, be the best in the world at it, and say no to everything else.
And what is your best piece of overall business advice? So not necessarily industry specific.
Definitely to invest in yourself. I think nowadays it's easier than ever to get high quality information online. So invest money into online courses, coaches, events, travel. Like, even though I'm out of Slovenia, I spend thousands of dollars each year just traveling to the United States and back, so I can learn, so I can connect with the top experts in the industry, build those relationships, find mentors, find friends that I can go on this journey with together, because you can't do this alone. You can't do this alone by just figuring things out and, reading the stuff on the internet for free. It goes much faster if you actually invest in yourself and then meet all of the other people that can help you along the way. And I think that applies pretty much for any industry out there.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
So my younger self, I think one of the biggest mistakes, or things that I just didn't know when I was like a high school kid, was like, I thought of books as textbooks, which were dry and boring for me, or fiction books, which were really fun but not that useful for me. So if I were to speak to my 15, 16-year-old self, I would just give myself a personal development book, or a business book, or like a biography of a successful sportsman or an entrepreneur, and I would just prepare my mind to be blown away. Because I think like there's just so much we can learn from books at such an affordable rate, for like $5, $10, or even from getting them for libraries. And I just didn't know about any of that when I was a high school student. So I think that would just be a game changer for me.
And in your opinion, what is the key to happiness?
I think it's three things. One, it's always learning. Two, it's always practicing. And three, it's always creating, especially, if you are an online entrepreneur or a business owner. So one, I noticed for myself that whenever I stop learning, whenever I stop reading books or like taking courses or talking to other people and getting new ideas, I stop being happy, because I feel like I'm just stuck in the exact same place and I'm not learning anything new. And, when we do learn something new, we tend to be way more excited about it and we're way happier, because we feel like, hey, we're learning these things, we're improving. The second thing is practicing. So with practicing, I mean, taking what you learned and putting it into practice so you can actually develop specific skills. So if you learn about copywriting, practicing copywriting, for me, like, that makes me happy, because I know I'm actually getting better at something. And last but not least, I mean creating. So creating means putting your skills to good use. So you develop those skills, you learn, you practice them, but then actually using those skills to create something, whether it's creating, online courses or content or physical products, making sure that the skills that you've built are actually being used and you're creating something in the world, that's going to make you feel happy. So I notice whenever I'm learning, practicing, and creating, I'm always happy. And if it works for me, it might work for you as well.
And what is the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
Yeah, I love this question. This is probably a book you haven't heard of yet, but you absolutely have to read it. It's a book called Why We Think the Way We Do and How to Change It, and it's by Thomas Garvey. So this is a book about literally what it says, about like why we think the way we do and how to change it. So it really shows us why, how we developed our limiting beliefs, and mental barriers that are holding us back. And for example, like if you ever try to go on a diet, and then you said like, hey, I'm not going to eat junk food anymore, and then you saw yourself eating junk food, now you're going to understand why that happened and actually how to change those behaviors that you want to change, but you just can't seem to be able to change. So if you want to do that, read that book, Why We Think the Way We Do and How to Change It, by Thomas Garvey.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
Okay, so this one is not a specific quote, but it is my personal philosophy. And I think it's just something interesting, which is every day is an opportunity to practice mastery. I do think we're on this world for a reason. I do think there's a lot we can bring to this world. And it kind of goes in line with like always learning, practicing, and creating. I think that every day you have this opportunity. You can coast through the day. You can be mediocre. You can just be okay with what you're doing. Just get through the day. Or you can look at every single day as an opportunity to get better at something, to become a master at something, and to practice to get better at that. So that's my favorite philosophy, and hopefully that becomes a quote someday.
Yes, man. Thank you so much for coming on. There was so much value in this episode. The last question I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
Yeah, you can just go to primozbozic.com. So that's PRIMOZBOZIC.com. You can also just Google like Primoz business or something like that. You'll probably find my website. Come on my website and you can get a free ebook where you can get access to the best strategy that helped me build a 6-figure online business.
Awesome, man. Thank you again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.